Now, day after the destruction of the critical Kakhovka Dam in Ukraine's south, the scale of the disaster is slowly beginning to unfold. The collapse of a major dam in Ukraine is having catastrophic impacts, with floodwaters on a rise in the southern Ukraine, submerging streets and homes further downstream. Now, huge rescue and evacuation efforts are currently underway, and thousands of people on both sides of the front line have been impacted. Now, this dam breach is also being seen as extremely disastrous for the region's environment and also water supply. Ukrainian residents living near the Dnipro river packed their belongings and fled the area as they watched their neighborhoods drown in the flood waters. In fact, Ukrainian officials are calling this the largest man-made environmental disaster in Europe in decades. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has even claimed that the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine had left hundreds of thousands of people without regular access to drinking water. Meanwhile, in his very first reaction on the dam breach, Russian President Vladimir Putin has called the Kakhovka Dam attack a quote-unquote barbaric act.
The flood levels from the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam in Ukraine are expected to reach their peak Wednesday, but the scale of the devastation across large parts of the region has brought fresh heartbreak in what is still an active war zone. It's now threatening a new wave of homelessness, disease, toxic chemical contamination, and even warnings of floating landmines in this ecological disaster. This is the city of Kherson, which was once occupied by Russian forces before Ukraine's military retook it. It's where Reuters' camera crew found this resident, who's saying her grandmother is trapped on the first floor of a building with her cats and dogs. She was brought there yesterday thinking it would be safer for her. Alas, it was not. Elsewhere in the city is Irina, an animal rescue volunteer. She says her group has already recovered up to 30 dogs, and they're trying to save whatever animals they can. But first, they need to wait for a boat so they can go out and save more. Russian state media are reporting that although the water levels may have peaked, the floods are expected to remain for up to 10 days. The long-term damage is another matter. Ukraine's government says the destruction of the dam, which it blames on Russia, is threatening to leave hundreds of thousands of residents without access to drinking water. It also says it will turn what was once farmland into swamps and turn other areas into desert. Russia blames Ukraine for the disaster and has imposed a state of emergency in the areas that it controls, such as this town, Kakhovka, where the destroyed dam is. Resident Valery Melnik's home is flooded, but he says he won't leave. He wants to stay, he says, because the war can't go on forever.
Russian forces destroyed the dam of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant. This horrifying act of terror has resulted in a massive ecological and humanitarian catastrophe. Dozens of settlements have been already flooded by water. The Ukrainian government has organized the evacuation from the territory of Kherson Oblast under our control. However, on the left bank, in the temporarily occupied area, people have been abandoned by the Russians. 10 settlements have been flooded there, and hundreds of homes have vanished beneath the water. People who stayed there are forced to leave their homes on their own, while those unable to do so find themselves trapped in the face of this disaster. The Russian occupiers don't even make an effort to help these people. They have left them to perish. International humanitarian organizations, on behalf of the government of Ukraine, I urge you, you must act immediately. We appeal to you to take charge of evacuating people from the territories of Kherson Oblast occupied by Russia.
Абсолютно катастрофічна ситуація.
The situation in the occupied part of the Kherson region is absolutely catastrophic. The occupiers have simply abandoned the people in these dreadful conditions. Without rescue, without water, they are left on the rooftops in flooded
І
communities.
це ще один свідомий злочин Росії.
Now, a clear and prompt response from the world is needed to what is happening. It is even impossible to accurately determine how many people in the temporarily occupied territory of the Kherson region may die without rescue, without drinking water, without food, without medical assistance. Our military and special services, to the extent possible, despite the shelling, are saving people.
Можуть загинути без порятунку.
Extensive efforts are needed. It is necessary for international organizations such as the Red Cross to immediately get involved in the rescue operation and help people in the occupied part of the Kherson region.
Рятують людей. Провів сьогодні
Each life lost there is a verdict to the existing international architecture and international organizations that have lost the ability to save lives. If an international organization is not present in the zone of this catastrophe, it means it does not exist at all. It is incapable. Ukraine and our government have made all the necessary requests.
перебуває під контролем окупантів. Є домовленість із керівником МАГАТЕ про активізацію роботи представників МАГАТЕ на станції, але зрозуміло, що поки окупанти там, повної безпеки не уявити. Тому деокупація України – це безальтернативне завдання.
Let me first bring in my colleague Abhishek Jha on this live stream to offer more perspective on what really has happened post this dam breach in the Kherson region in Ukraine. Now, Abhishek, we have heard various stakeholders from Ukraine talking about how this is a Russian attack. On the other hand, we also now know how Vladimir Putin has made a first reaction on this dam breach. He's called it a quote-unquote barbaric act. Now, how does one read this statement by Russia, considering there is ample proof that this could possibly be an attack by the Russian side?
You see, this is the latest attack which on a territory which is very much under the Russian control. And the civilian infrastructure has been under the attack. Earlier, we have seen Crimea bridge falling under the attack. There has been a couple of terrorist attacks inside Russia. And every time there has been a very strong reaction coming from the Russian side. Even on this time, Kherson region, where this whole dam flood is creating a lot of chaos, and the thousands of lives of people, or thousands of they are in real difficult situation. This part has been from the very first day that the dam has been very much under the control of the Russian side. So clearly Russia has been saying that there is a civilian infrastructure that is catering to the needs of the Crimean side of the people, and a lot of irrigation facilities happening through this dam. Why would Russia make it worse, or why would Russia damage? So this is the Russian side's argument, while Ukrainian side is continuously saying that Russians have damaged this dam so that they can flood the whole region in a way to avoid the upcoming spring offensive that Ukrainian side has been preparing. So there are claims and counterclaims from both the sides, but the fact is that one major civil infrastructure, which was like almost 8 decades old, has been totally damaged.
Yes.
Millions of liters of water is flooding on the streets and roads of Kherson region. Thousands of people had to leave their home because they could not, support themselves because of the flooding water. So the whole humanitarian crisis that is still developing. We'll have to see how the Ukrainian side or the Russian side comes to terms with the latest problems. But we can for sure say that Russians are going to react to this situation as well, if it has been from the Ukrainian side.
Also, Abhishek, before I let you go, one last question from you. There also has been 500 odd attacks on Russians' Belgorod town. So that also is something that has happened right after this dam breach. How does one read that attack vis-a-vis what we are seeing in Kherson?
See, at least 80 villages which were very much under control of Russia, they also had to be evacuated. There are some parts in the Ukraine territory which is also being evacuated. The river Dnipro crosses through Ukraine, and it in fact bisects the capital city Kyiv also. So the flooding which has started from Dnipro is going to be affecting all the Ukraine passing through Kyiv, and until it will end itself or empty itself into the Black Sea. So whole region is going to be impacted with this. So clearly Russian side is also being impacted, and the Ukrainian side is also being impacted with the latest flood that has happened because of the damage of the dam.
All right, Abhishek Jha, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Let me now bring in my guest, Umit Nazmi Hazir, who is a political analyst. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. I'd like to ask you a very simple question. With this latest comment that Vladimir Putin has made on the dam breach, the obvious conjecture that's been made is that this might be the Russian attempt at trying to freeze the war, because Russia could have blown up the dam in an effort to actually stall Ukraine's counteroffensive. How true are those inferences that are being made?
Actually, this dam, Kakhovka, which happened Kakhovka region, it has changed the destiny of the war, because before this disaster, because it's also at the same time environmental disaster, the Ukrainian side was attempting to leak in Belgorod and making operations in Belgorod in order to show that Russia also is suffering from the war. However, this dam suddenly changed the destiny of the war, and on the other hand, both sides, Russia and Ukraine, have traded accusations over each other.
Yes.
And however, still there is not concrete proof whether it's an attack or the dam was collapsed because of structural failure. I think therefore there must be like an investigation council must be created by under the guidance of United Nations, because it must appear, and we need to know that because it has caused environmental disaster, and therefore we must know it was it was caused by Russia or Ukraine. On the other hand, nowadays it's a crucial time for the war, because both sides attempting more operations, and suddenly this dam changed the destiny of the war, and it also has deepened the war, because it seems that the war will be not ending soon. But on the other hand, it has not any effect over Kremlin or over the approach of Russian society, because they consider that it's it has caused by Ukrainian side. Therefore, according to Russian society and Russian government, it hasn't changed the behavior, or it wouldn't change the behavior or political attitude or operational attitude of Russia.
Okay, I'd also like to understand from you, Mr. Hazir, the fact that there are many who are claiming that Russia might just be using these devastating weapons of mass destruction. Could this dam breach be termed as one?
It is early to talk about this, because right now operations are going on. But on the other hand, in terms of Kherson, because this dam, the collapse happened in the Kherson region, and people living in Kherson suffer. Russia was in the Kherson region like a more defense position, and there is a river. Russia has been protecting this region, and after this dam attack, I think it would be more easy for Russia to protect this defense line.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Hazir, and appreciate you joining us on this live stream. Thank you so much for offering to share your perspective.